Back in 1943, Wright had been asked to design a museum in New York City to house the vast collection of non-objective paintings amassed by the Copper King Solomon R. Guggenheim. Works by Mondrian, Delaunay, Kandinsky. Wright didn't think much of abstract art. Lessons in finger painting, he once called it. When he was shown some of Guggenheim's masterpieces, he could not resist asking, "What do you call this stuff?" Still, he eagerly set to work. "Wait till you see the blueprints for the Guggenheim," he told a friend. "It's going to stand almost directly across from the Metropolitan Museum. It's going to make the Metropolitan look like a Protestant barn."
He was haunted by certain shapes all his life long, for example, the spiral. And he kept bringing that up again and again. He tried to do a spiral garage for Edgar Kaufman in Pittsburgh. And finally, he got the chance of the lifetime of doing the spiral in the Guggenheim.
And here he has an opportunity to do a museum on Fifth Avenue in New York City. I mean, he'd been hoping all his life for something of this nature.
But the Guggenheim turned out to be the most difficult commission of his life. For 13 years, Wright had to battle to get his museum built. He and Guggenheim argued over the projected cost of the building, which quickly rose from $750,000 to $2 million. Then Guggenheim died, and his heirs threatened to fire Wright and hire another architect. The zoning board refused to approve Wright's unorthodox design. Desperate, he turned to the man in charge of all major construction in New York City, Robert Moses. "I don't care how many laws you have to break," Moses told the zoning board. "I want the Guggenheim built." At last, in 1956, ground was broken on the corner of 89th Street and Fifth Avenue. The interior was to be one continuous ramp, and visitors were to start at the top and work their way down. But even after construction began, controversy swirled around the project. Several prominent critics attacked Wright's design. Hilton Kramer called it an architecture which succeeds in having only one organic function, to call attention to itself. One writer called him Frank Lloyd Wrong.
He doesn't want to have to adjust his buildings to the pre-existing urban fabric. He used to say, think of it as a pavilion in a park. Well, of course, it's not in the park. It's on the street, and the reason it looks wonderful on the street is because the other buildings obey the law of the street and set it off. Imagine if the other buildings were gone and you had more Guggenheims, you'd have the Strip.
Somebody said the museum out here on Fifth Avenue looked like a washing machine.
This one that you're building?
That's one of my buildings. Well, I've heard a lot of that type of reaction, and I've always discounted it as worthless, and I think it is.
21 well-known artists, including Willem de Kooning, Franz Klein, and Robert Motherwell, sent a letter to the New York Times arguing that it would be impossible to display their work on the museum's curved, sloping walls. Wright fired off a telegram denouncing the incubus of habit that beset their minds. Painters would produce finer art, he said, if they knew it would hang in his museum.
I kept trying to point out, I'm trying to make a building where seeing works of art would be so natural. You just glide down the ramp. The paintings would lie on the wall, much as they would on the artist's easel, lit from above, and the light changing all the time. He wasn't trying to subjugate the painting to the building. He was trying to create a synthesis, create a marriage between architecture and paintings that had never existed before.
Somebody took a picture of him 6 months before he died on top of the Guggenheim Museum. and the scaffolding is there, and he's in profile. And you see him with the pork pie hat, and he's a man on top of the world. And he's almost 92. It's an image of him that I can't get out of my mind, and to me, it's the essential right.
On October 21st, 1959, 6 months after Frank Lloyd Wright died, the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum opened to the public.
Wright changed how we see the land, how we use the land, how we live in our houses, how we work in our offices, even how we relate to paintings. After the Guggenheim, who cares about all the art in the museums if the building itself isn't thrilling?
What is all art to do? All art is in some way about some kind of spiritual connection, some connection to something larger than us, some connection to something that we cannot wholly describe or put in words. Art is a lie that tells us the truth, Picasso once said. It's about getting to some feeling. And architecture, unlike any other art, connects to everyday living at the same time. It's a roof over our heads. It protects us from the rain. And Wright's genius was in his ability to do that, his ability to serve everyday needs, which are always part of architecture, which never go away, and yet at the same time to kind of grab you in your gut and make you feel as if you're having some kind of transcendental experience almost.